Okay, so Risco from Estonia. How you doing, mate?
Doing well.
Yeah,
Yourself?
yeah, doing cool. And so you've been a viewer of the Awake and Brave channel for how long now?
Well, something like 9 months, I guess. When I arrived at this location, that was last year, July. And maybe a couple weeks afterwards, I would have found the channel. I was in the market for that kind of thing. And funnily enough, it was Tom, who was just on the channel previously now, who clued me in on your channel. I was looking at his channel. I've spoken to him as well directly, briefly, because he was running this men's group thing. He ended up canceling it, and I didn't really know anything about him, to be honest. I just kind of signed up and sent him a bunch of money, and then he's like, he's not gonna do it. So I got it's all sorted. He sent the money back, all good. So I spoke to him briefly, but he made like a brief mention of your channel on his channel, and all he said was. If you enjoy being yelled at for like 60 minutes at a time, you should check this channel out. He loves it. I'm like, sounds good. So after that, I kind of tuned in, and yeah, me being at this location is kind of this whole experience here is kind of intertwined with listening to a lot of the stuff on your channel. Most days, I'll be listening to something. So yeah, about 9 months.
So what do you mean about entwined with that location?
As in just me being here, walking around. I drive back and forth quite a lot, and a lot of the times I'll just have one of your videos on. And I started with I don't know why, but I just went to the Rumble channel first. I thought I got the impression you're active there, not here, I think. So I just went through the whole Rumble list. Some really good stuff there. But then yeah, I found the YouTube and all the rest.
Yeah,
But yeah, just being here, just getting the downloads and all this, it's kind of intertwined in that sense. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, over on the Rumble channel, I think there's about 30 videos there. That's kind of like that was a safety net before I started my Odyssey channel. Now the
Oh,
Odyssey
there's
channel,
that too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Odyssey channel does automatic uploads.
Mm.
So brilliant. And the technicians at Odyssey was working with me because I was someone who was desirous to upload in excess of 1,500 videos from YouTube. Now, they found that very interesting because they were working out how to do that.
I
Now,
saw that video. I saw that video. You sorted it out. Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
went to and fro for about 3 weeks, and they were trying all different sorts of things. In the end, I got about 90% of the videos uploaded. There was an issue with about 10%. YouTube was blocking them for whatever reason, so couldn't do those. But I'm happy with, I think there's 1,600, 1,700 now, and every time I put a video up on YouTube, it goes straight over onto my Awake and Brave channel on Odyssey. Now, there's another channel on Odyssey which I manually uploaded, and I think it's called The Journey to the Self.
I think that's the one I know, not the one with the automatic backups. That's the one I found as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
for all viewers watching, there's two channels on the Odyssey site, and if you click on the Odyssey link, that will take you straight through to A Journey to the Self, which was videos I was uploading, and I've stopped uploading now for several months because I get them on the other channel. You see, they couldn't work it to upload them onto that particular channel. For some reason, they had to start a fresh one. So I've got two channels there, which is fine as long as they're there in case YouTube decides once again to take my channels down, because they've taken down about four channels, five channels, and I've took
Was
down
was was all that around COVID, or you've lost channels before, like for other reasons?
COVID, and it's about being too explicit with psychedelics and entheogens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. I saw some of those LSD videos as well. Some of the early ones. Those were very entertaining. It's pretty rare to see people have these kind of reports. Really, sort of, you're filming yourself real time and everything. Very interesting. I've never had any direct experience with any of that stuff, shrooms or any
Wow.
psychedelics. Yeah.
Okay, so the last video I put up yesterday, have you watched that?
The one I commented on, or was there another one?
No, which one? The last one. Well, I'm on the golf course. I think you watched it,
Oh
didn't you?
yeah, yeah. I watched the whole video. I just left the comment like when I
So
started, but I watched the whole thing.
stuff, and the root of my frustration is that uh, with the videos that I produce, I would have expected to draw um, more people, most people who have had actually the experiences that I've spoken about throughout the whole of the duration what I've been doing these videos. It's entheogens, it's meditation, it's reading psychology and philosophy, as well as a whole broad range of things. It's about experimentation. It's about not just blindly listening and receiving. No, it's investigating and it's questioning this philosopher against that philosopher. And we need to have an enormous amount, an enormous array of information before we can start to see the clarity of where the pieces fit together. And I don't know. You should be by now. Are you familiar with my book?
I haven't read the book. I've seen a lot of your videos, obviously, where you share like segments and stuff.
Right. Well, I'm going to hold it up again because there's lots of new viewers. These are my books, and they are both the same book. Only there's two different titles to appeal to two different markets. I was intuitively persuaded to call the first one Closer to God. But there's loads of books called Closer to God, and they are the God of the Old Testament. And so anyone seeing the title, they're going to get completely the wrong perspective, because what I mean by closer to God is closer to the self, and the self is spirit. And so it's very confusing for many, many people unless you're very, very versed in all this different sort of stuff. Now, I'm always highly recommending my book, and it's not because I'm so desirous to get sales, because I get £10 per copy for this. It's not going to change my life, but it may very well change people who read it, because you can see it's voluminous. It's 650 pages. There are heaps and heaps and heaps of things that I have encountered through that time, 14 years of my spiritual awakening. And I speak about how it came about, why it came about, and the journey I went on. And honest to goodness, the book is £30 or $35. I can't think for the life of me why anyone that watches a lot of my videos isn't in receipt of one of those books. You read, you do book reviews and things like that. I can't think why you wouldn't want to, because it shows you a person's spiritual awakening, the actual development, and the whole fucking shebang that you go through. Dark Night of the Soul, the hero's journey, and any number of things. Out of body experiences, meditation experiences, psychedelic experiences, supernatural experiences, spontaneous, and this, that, and the other. It's a whole fucking shebang of a spiritual awakening. And yet, I labor it and labor it and labor it, and then I'll check now and again to see how many books have been purchased in any given month. Hardly anything. One. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So then, when I said finally at the end of yesterday's video, you'll do with this information what you'll do with it. Probably you'll just continue fucking sleepwalking through life. I mean, people who are on my channel, they need to listen a great fucking deal more, and they need to really try to concentrate on what it is I'm saying if they are desirous to make a spiritual ascension. Because by just looking and thinking it's entertainment and, dismissing and not pursuing the things I say ain't going to get you anywhere. People are going to plod along on their own fucking blind journey, and it'll be whatever it will be. But there's not many people that have a journey like mine. Risco. My journey's been very, very profound. And I've never listened to a guru that's got anything remotely as profound as mine. And when I've listened to gurus' so-called points of awakening, they've got about 30 seconds to say on it. And, like Mooji and Krishnamurti and Sadhguru, they've got one episode of a spiritual enlightenment or awakening whereby, they went into samadhi, and that's it. That's all they've got. I'm like, for fuck's sake, I've got hundreds of those. I've taken 300 psychedelic excursions, and every one of those is a samadhi. You go into the cosmic consciousness and all that sort of thing. So I've gone off on a fucking rant as usual, but I can't emphasize enough why people, what it is about them. It is £30, $35 such a fucking obstacle? Or is it that the obstacle is people's brains these days? They look at a book like that and they are fucking terrified. Terrified. How many people have said to me, there's no point in me reading because I don't absorb anything. I just can't. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's gone on with the world. Well, I do. I know what the fuck's gone on with the world. The world's been fucking hijacked. The human mind's been hijacked. Gone are the days when people absorbing deep information. Like you're attempting to do now with your philosophy and listening to people like me. We're very rare. And this is why, I invited you to come to chat, because you're one of the very, very few people that would even come close to receiving, what I've got to say. And, that's not like because I'm the big I am. It's because, of the life I've led, and I'm fucking more than twice your age. And, those years were spent traveling the world. I'm not just talking from one fucking job in one town, reading a few books. I'm talking about global life experience for an already old soul and awoken being. I woke up at 4 years old, when my mother gassed herself in the fucking oven. I woke the fuck up, to a world which was very bizarre. Anyway, I'll let you get
Absolutely.
away. Let's go.
Yeah, I can't say I have any sort of biographical experiences of even close to the magnitude of these things that you've gone through. So it kind of begs the question as well. I don't know how I end up watching someone like you for hours and hours on end. And one of the questions I did sort of have at some point was just like, how much does one have to suffer to reach any level of enlightenment? How much is necessary? Because, on the whole, broadly speaking, I look back in my own life, I can't really pinpoint to any serious trauma, any sort of happening like that, nothing like that, really. It's been quirky in other ways, we can get into that, I guess, but no sort of shock to the system like you've had, like numerous ones, several ones, and yet you do end up in the same ballpark of some of this knowledge, and then you almost get this sense of like, have I even earned this knowledge? or was I supposed to go through some major shit, or is that still on the way for me? I think it might, in some capacity, like even as something as simple as health, for instance. I've never had a serious health problem in my life, not once.
You're only about 25, aren't you?
I'm 34. Yeah.
34. You're looking great, mate. You're looking very youthful.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I've exercised and everything, but I've never had a serious health issue. I've never so much as even broken a bone. And it just occurred to me that were that to happen, in some sense, I'd be mentally quite ill prepared. If one day you told me, for instance, I've lost use of my legs or something, if not forever, then for a long time, or something debilitating like that, I was like, I don't know, like I have no idea how I would actually deal with that. But looking at stuff like your channel and all the rest, I think I would at least be prepared to gain what's gainable from it. You're gonna get some downloads and stuff. You're gonna have to deal with that kind of thing. But yeah, on the whole, there's kind of like a lack of any such experience. As far as like the things I'm struggling with, it's more like a death by 1,000 cuts type of thing. Whereas this gradually over many years, you get programmed with certain, I don't know, negative thinking, this kind of thing. But yeah, nothing like that. As for your book, it's I would imagine it's going to be like the size of it. It's like intimidating, and I know you've said have it in these nice sort of sections laid out and stuff. So it'll be relatively easy read. For me, it's just because I'm still a chicken packer. So for me, the compromise is to listen to the videos because I can actually work more or less and listen to the videos, but I can't read at the same time. So I do that, and I do get the impression though that a lot of what you probably write in the book, it will of course bleed into your videos, so you can still sort of gain lessons from it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
think
don't
it's
have the lineage, you don't have the depth, and
yeah, that's true.
it's like when people watch YouTube videos. If you only watch YouTube videos, forget it. Forget ever absorbing anything because you won't. Because all you're getting when someone's got 1 hour of a video, well, fuck me, they've read at least the whole book and studied, extensively beyond that for many years. People who come onto a channel and speak about something like that, they've got usually an enormous amount of information. And there's one guy that I watch. He's called Morg something or other. This guy with long white hair, blue eyes, long white hair, speaks about all the mystical and the mythological and Jesus and the archons and all that. Morg
I
Official.
haven't seen that one.
Okay, Morg Official. Very, very informative. Write it down and check him out. Morg Official. Morg as in death. I mean, he that's his fucking name.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting.
No, just went to get some books. I want to speak to you about some books. Now, let me address this whole thing about the trauma. From my estimation of being in this business for as long as I have, if I have encountered that 1,000 times, I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. Now, I'm currently reading this book.
Assault on Truth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson. And this book was recommended by Candice Owens. And she does a book club and she speaks about these things. She was speaking about the whole Jewish psychoanalysis thing. It came out of the Jewish fraternity, and of course, because the Jews have always been of a mind to have power over the rest of the world, and this was even before the Second World War. This all this stuff in here, Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis, started back in the late 1800s. And it was all about the deep investigation of the mind. Now, obviously, for reasons, for a cultural reason, because they have been expelled from every single country they've ever been dwelling in for very good reasons, because they're very parasitical, they're very overpowering, and they absorb a nation's resources and everything, and that they are masters at deception and beguilement and control. This is an absolute fact. It's nothing to do with anti-Semitism or any of that bollocks. It's what they do, it's what history have said. So in this book, it says when the analysts are speaking with one another, they are absolutely convinced that any level of personal understanding is going to come from trauma. Because unless you get some level of deep trauma, whether it's short and shocking or whether it's ongoing, your ego just isn't going to break down sufficiently to crack open and enable the light of cosmic spirit to enter. Now, when you're speaking about, reading some of the stuff and, we seem to end up with the same knowledge, we don't. We absolutely don't. You think you do. You think you do from reading a book. But let me just say this to get some sort of deep understanding in this. If you read, let's say, one book on Sigmund Freud, and you think, well, I think I get that. Yeah, I know where that's at. Are you sure? Are you sure you would have any fucking idea, really, of the magnitude of what he's speaking about from 20, 30, 50, 60 years experience. He's putting that into like a couple of hundred pages. He's skipping along the fucking surface of a pond like a pebble being tossed over it, and you are kissing those little indentations along the top of the pond. That is the reality of anyone's knowledge when they're doing this. And so it's a misconception. It's the ego. Oh, yeah, I get that. No, the ego doesn't get it. Shut the fuck up, ego. You get nothing. And if you are going to get things, really get things, the ego has to be crushed. It absolutely has to be ripped to pieces. It has to dissolve, and then you get this awakening, and then you get this enlightenment, and then all of a sudden things are so much clearer because you're in a different state of consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot to be said about a direct experience of any kind. That's kind of over the years what I've always been a reader, and I had a lot of faith in books in general and the written word and all these reports of all these different happenings and all this. But that has loosened considerably. There's a limit to that. There's only so much you can really get from the page. And of course, you still can't stop though. You're still curious or whatever. It's good for something, right? But at a certain point, yeah, you'll need direct experience to these things, and I suppose that's like the value of your channel as well, because I don't think you're a philosopher, but you're not just like in the books. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is like, you've bled for it, basically. Like, for lack of a better
Yes,
expression.
blood and sweat. It's blood and sweat and experience. It's first
Yeah.
hand. This is why I'm so dismissive of when I'm reading such and such philosophers like Plato's Republic. I'm like, I'd like to say that it's because that was over 2,000 years ago, and humanity was very, very naive. But he was as clever as they come at that particular time, and yet to say all the things about how he considered countries should be governed, it was just so incredibly naive and bereft of any fucking real reality. And then I asked myself, well, okay, back in ancient Athens at that particular time, they had the Senate, and they had no literature, they had no media, and so where were they going to get their information about the world from? So okay, they can be forgiven. They had a good go, but when people hold Plato and Aristotle and all the rest of them in high regard, they have to remember it's 2026. We're 2,000 years on from the Greek philosophers, and we're 1,000 years, 500 years on from even Rene Descartes, in the 1500s, I think, therefore I am. We've grown massively. And so they're like children now. When somebody has studied all this stuff, and like Immanuel Kant, lots of people have an aversion to me when I'm speaking with AI. It's the biggest mistake they make, because these AI conversations are some of the best that I've ever had. I can't get these conversations with anybody else. They don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But at least with AI, I can say, tell me what Immanuel Kant's philosophy was in relation to the lumina and the phenomena. And then I can say, tell me what Bishop Berkeley reckoned about, there's nothing there when you're not looking. Tell me what Schopenhauer's idea was of everything is fucking will and representation. And you get all this stuff revealed. And then you can say, okay, can you see a simile between any of those? And then they'll have a little bit of a go. And I'm like, you're missing something. What about this? And, oh, yeah, my bad. Oh, yeah, well, that's a very good point. And blah, blah, blah. Look, there's so much to be learned, because the large language modules are an absolute mine of information, because basically what they're doing, they've got Google at their fingertips. And whenever you ask them anything, it's only what Google is telling you. So it's what the world knows on a superficial level, right? And so that's all it is. But you see, these large language models, they haven't read the whole fucking book of Kant. They haven't read the whole book of any fucking thing. They just skim the surface. That's why I lose them, because I have done that. and I'm a human being, and I'm a conscious entity, and so therefore I can think in many ways that they can't think. And so it's very interesting when we look at AI, because people have to know where we are with AI. We have to know what their flaws are, what their strengths are, and we have to know some sort of idea and vision where they're going. If you're ignorant to it, then at your own fucking peril. You got to keep your friends close, but your enemies even closer. AI is the enemy of human consciousness. And if we just
That's
fucking
interesting.
sleep through life, then we're fucked. Absolutely fucked. Now, just as an aside, I've got two other books on my bedside. One of them's this.
Is that Jung? Yeah, that's Jung, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the archetypes and the collective unconscious. Absolutely imperative for anyone who is on the spiritual journey. Again, it's not a small book. Then, of course, this one I'm just brushing up. I've read this 2 times already, but I'm just brushing up. With basically it gives you the overview of Western philosophy from the Greeks up to the
Yeah.
present, and so we have to know these things. And if we don't know them, if we don't have the depth, then we ain't going nowhere, Risco. And that's the whole point about it. We think we are, because the egos tell us, oh, yeah, I know this and I know that. But then when you ask yourself, you really know. Now, I always give an illustration in relation to climbing a mountain. Now, I had an incredible experience about climbing a mountain where, I was very close to death. And I experienced something absolutely incredible about the mind, how we can actually turn our conscious mind off. I turned my conscious mind off for 3.5 hours because I couldn't stand the stress of that last final ascent at 20,000 feet. Well, his last final ascent at 18,000 feet, because the summit's 20,000 feet. And so I said to my higher self, the only way am I going to survive climbing this mountain is if I don't remember a fucking thing until I get to the top. And then my mind turned off and I slept walked. I don't know how the hell I got up there. I was suffering massively from altitude sickness. I was exhausted, hadn't eaten for 5 fucking days. It was a 7-day trip. I lost my appetite. I had altitude sickness and all the rest of it. But that's what happens. And so when you learn things like that, you learn things that very very few people have ever learned on the planet. What you can actually do. And then when we go back and we start to understand Sigmund Freud more, when he's speaking about how when we're abused, when we suffer the greatest of trauma, we repress that information. And so we can't remember it outside of going back into hypnosis to retrieve that information through regression. You see, so then you understand the whole regression thing and how we can go back into people's minds, into their unconscious, and we can pull out these pieces of what the fuck happened to them when they were children, and why they're so fucked up, and why they are sexually perverted, and why they're drug addicts, and they can't get along with their life is because of that. And so you put all these pieces together and you build and you build and you build. And then, when you listen to people who, they're talking about this little bit and they're talking about that little bit, it's kind of like, you're all fucking children in the kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all. Direct experience, certainly it'll trump anything. And it's funny because it sounds like you're describing something that I just read about in Evola's book about mountain climbing. He says that he describes it a bit different, but he's like, you want to get to a point of exhaustion where certain forces will take over, and suddenly you have this superhuman strength to go beyond and do the impossible. But you to access that superhuman strength, you literally have to like be shredded to pieces beforehand. You got to be ready to die up there. So
Yeah.
I think he describes something similar. Yeah, and I read that, I'm like, wow. But of course, absolutely, to have like direct experience of this is completely another matter. And so, yeah, I don't disagree at all. And this is kind of what I've been pondering looking at your channel. It's like, what can we do if we know this is true? Because there's a bit of a difficulty in like bringing about this sort of proactive kind of kind of suffering. Like I think a lot of what they do in these, I've been to a lot of these Buddhist monasteries where they meditate and stuff, and sometimes particularly the Zen variety, it's like this no pain, no gain attitude, and they go there and they sit endlessly and they're in pain, and it's just like they think that's what's gonna get them the juice and stuff. But you see that, and it's like they're doing it proactively, and it's still like this kind of controlled environment, and it's like you're not gonna. It's something, but it's not really the thing, is it? So it's like something unpredictable needs to happen, or you really need to go out of your way to I don't know, like join a war or something, join the French Foreign Legion. Like in the last video, you were saying that a war can be a blessing in that sense, and I completely understand that logic. But something like a war, for instance, again, we can't really manufacture that. We can't sort of like wish it and it's going to come, and so that's kind of what I've been pondering, looking at your stuff. It's just like, what can we do, practically speaking? And that's why I think I suggested to you in one of the comments. It's like the least you could do, at least, is put yourself in the ballpark of these things, and then just kind of hope for the best.
Well, you said
Something will find you, somehow.
Yeah, well, you said it
Hopefully.
yourself. If you are really desirous about knowing thyself and what the fuck's going on here in this cosmos, then you absolutely have to engage with the entheogens. And more and more people these days, scientists. I listen to loads of scientists, and they're all taking stuff now, big doses of psilocybin, 5-MeO DMT or regular DMT, and acid and all the different sorts of stuff, because they've come to an impasse. We've come to an impasse as human beings. We the scientism, they're just religious. They're religious the same as any other religion, and they don't know what the fuck's going on in the world because they've got no fucking idea about the actual thing which is doing all of this stuff, and that's consciousness. And so it's like fish in the water proclaiming to know what the fuck they are, what the fuck they're doing, when they've got no idea that they're actually in water, because the consciousness doesn't extend them to thinking about that, right? So now, many scientists, and recently there was a neurologist, neuroscientist called Christoph Koch. And he's German, and he's been speaking with lots of people, Bernardo Kastrup and the Essentia Foundation, and this, that, and the other. And he was saying, look, he's been dealing with consciousness for most of his life. And he thought, well, I know as much as written about consciousness, because I've been dealing with it all my life. He took 5-MeO DMT, and he came back and he goes, I know fuck all about consciousness.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know fuck all about consciousness in 5 fucking minutes. Now what he's done is he's gone, okay, I can't throw out all what I've learned throughout these years. I have to amalgamate. I have to work with. I have to experience more of this. I have to learn more about that and conjoin them together because they're inseparable. And I have to try to convey to scientists, dogma scientists, that listen, people, there's more that's going on than atoms and fucking what have you, which don't exactly exist anymore. Back in the day, they thought atoms exist. Now they say atoms don't exist. It's only quantum fields that exist. And one day they'll all concede that actually nothing exists except pure consciousness, and everything manifests out of consciousness, like in the mind and dream of God. That's where we are. But I already know this, and I don't know to what extent other people know, but I know some people do know it. Why do I know it? Because I've had these experiences, and I've had lots of supernatural experiences without being on entheogens. I've had samadhis. I've had supernatural, the ego of Jesus talking to me, my whole fucking body shaking, feeling, waves, ooh, tears streaming down my face, and fucking Jesus is saying, and just instantly knew it was Jesus, that if you want to know what unconditional love is, you have to come through me. And that was, unconditional love. It's the most beautiful feeling I've ever felt in my life. I could never replicate that of my own accord, you see? And that came about with a very, very bizarre experience when I came out of meditation for 1 hour and I was staring at this mural behind me. And somewhere in there, there was a picture of Jesus's head, lifelike, this side. And I'm like, the fuck? The fucking Jesus. I got up off the couch and I'm like, I'm putting on different glasses and I'm like, it doesn't go away. I'm like, why have I seen that as clear as a bell today when I haven't seen it in the past 3 years? And I've laid on that couch in the meditation of 332 hertz and I've woke up in the bliss and I've just been staring whilst I get my consciousness back. I've never seen it until this day. And as soon as I saw that, I get all this like out of body experience coming on. It was a full blown religious experience. Then after that, I bought William James, is the American philosophers. William James is spiritual experiences, variety of religious experiences.
I
And
know that one. Yeah.
behold, within that book, there is someone speaking about the exact same scenario. And all these people, they were collated from very, very reliable sources. They were like pastors and, very educated people. And the information was collated by someone, 50 years or so before William James included these, stories in his book. And he wasn't taking this stuff lightly. William James was a serious philosopher. And when there was one of those, almost exactly the same as mine, we have to start wondering what the fuck's going on. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything, right? But I go on what my intuition tells me is true, what I feel is true, what I experience as something. I don't even like to use the term truth because I don't believe there is any truth. True to who? True to fucking what? Everything is changing constantly, as per the Greek philosopher Heraclitus. Everything is complete, continuous flux. So I go, well, what happened there then? Who was it that was talking to me? Who was it that was showing me this incredible spiritual experience? I don't know. I've read and read and read and read and read about Jesus, and read the book, the Bible, from front to back twice, non-stop, and then listened to biblical scholars, thousands of them, thousands of hours, and I still don't know what the fuck that was all about. But what I am absolutely convinced of, there ain't no Jesus floating around in the fucking sky that's going to be saving us all and going to be welcoming us all, upon death. No. The mind is a very, very peculiar thing, curious thing. Everything is in consciousness, and there's lots of different things in consciousness. There's avatars in consciousness for sure, egregores, manifestation of energies which become beings like the Satan and Ahriman and all these different sorts of things. Look, in the Bible, there's no description of Satan at all, and it doesn't say, except maybe one line in the New Testament, which Jesus is supposed to have said, that he's an evil deceiver. Satan's an evil deceiver. But all this stuff is it's Judaism 2.0. It's the modification. It's kind of like, well, we never mentioned it in the old book. For 1,500 years, the old book was written over. And so the new book was written over about 40 years. It's written... Yeah, generally about that sort of period, starting 190 years after the death of Jesus. So it's all very, very fucking loose and bizarre. But things happen. And so who knows what happens? We can have very, very peculiar things. A lot goes on in consciousness. So I would say that don't ever get stuck on anything. Don't ever, proclaim that you believe in anything. Don't ever even have that concept of belief in your mind. Completely not necessary. Belief is for fools. You just go through your life and learning. So getting back to the question, how does one do this? Well, this trauma isn't for everyone. And even if we do have trauma, then the vast majority of people who suffer these traumas will kill themselves.
They'll crumble. Yeah.
purposely or inadvertently through heroin and alcoholism and all the rest of it. There's only very few people out of these people that have the deepest of traumas that are going to make it through and become someone like me, absolutely clear fucking headed. I've been to see psychiatrists and fucking psychologists and everything, and they've never even come close into considering that, you know, I've not got my marbles together. You know, they know they're dealing with something which is very exceptional. And my psychiatrist says I'm a very unusual case. They can't work me out for very good reason, because they don't have all the tools. You know, I have a great deal of the tools, and I know a lot about psychiatry, a lot about psychology, but also a lot about spirituality, a lot about the entheogenic realms and different sorts of things, a whole bunch of shit. And I bring all that together. That's who I am. That's what I am. And that's why nobody's going to ever get their head around me. But people that watch me, yeah, but you know, how do we do it? Well, in that video, I said entheogens is a portal that you really have to consider. And anyone that doesn't get involved with entheogens, whether it's acid, mushrooms, or DMT, or Amanita muscaria, or any of those fucking things, then they're not serious. Absolutely not serious. And they're completely under the control of their ego. Because the ego is the thing that, oh no, you don't need to do that, or you can get all that from just a bit of meditation, or just keep reading or watching these videos. No, the ego is terrified. You know why the ego is terrified? Because it's a conscious entity in its own right. It is actually a being. It's a being which has usurped the human body, right? It's an egregore. It's an actual fucking life force, which is it grown from thoughts and experiences, and then consciousness started to imbue in it more and more respect. And the more respect it gave this ego growing up as a kid, it got more autonomous. And now it's a fucking egregore which has usurped spirit and cosmic consciousness in the human being. You won't hear anyone speaking about this. I've never heard anyone speaking about this, putting these pieces together, because they just don't look so deeply and profoundly into this stuff. But if we know that the ego is a virus, right? Look, the ego is the operating system for sleeping automaton that go through the world and have a human experience, right? Now, in this dimension, that may be what it's all about. You just have a fucking, like you take a pill and you have a total recall, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, right? I want to go to Mars. Okay, take this fucking pill. We'll send you to Mars, only you ain't leaving your fucking chair, right? That's the ego. That's the ego. Until you usurp the ego, until you realize that the ego is an imposter, then you ain't doing anything. How are you going to get rid of the ego? You take entheogens. Have you ever seen the movie Drop Dead Fred with Rick Mayall?
No, haven't seen that one.
Okay, that movie, Drop Dead Fred. He was about a girl's imaginary friend. And the imaginary friend was always fucking causing mischief and everything. And the imaginary friend popped out of this little toy Jack in the Box when this little girl was 3 or 4 years old. Her imagination brought it out because she was a lonely kid. She was an only child. And so when the Jack in the Box popped out, she imagined that the Jack in the Box was real. And this character was called Drop Dead Fred because she had to say Drop Dead Fred to get rid of him from her mind, right? To get rid of that imposter, saying, look, you're a child of fantasy. Get the fuck out of my life now. So she had to put the Jack in the Box back in and tape it up. Right. So this is the whole thing with the ego. The ego is an imposter, and we have to put it back in its box, which is a tiny little part of our consciousness. And then we have to open up to cosmic consciousness, what the true self is, which is pure consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. It's spirit. Spirit is here, but the vast majority of people don't know it. And when you start to subdue the egoic facet of consciousness, then you'll be spoken to by spirit. Spirit will guide you every step of your fucking journey if you can listen, if you are listening. And so that's what's happened to me every step of my journey, every single book, every single person that you meet, everywhere you go, you're being guided and you're protected. Ain't no shit happening to you. And it's a very, very empowering thing. And so, well, if you haven't taken entheogens at 34, I wonder why not. And if you haven't had a deep curiosity to it, then spirit isn't talking to you. You see, because
Oh, I have, always have. Yeah, yeah. Since the longest time. Ever since I really, like 10, 15 years ago, I would have become aware of them. But the reason I avoided it was I did have certain, let's call them mental
Risko,
instabilities,
let me just clarify here. It's not being aware of them. You see, you're misconstruing
Mm.
the vast difference, the cavern in the awareness of these things. Now, having awareness of watching fucking YouTube videos, right, isn't having spirit speak to you. When spirit speaks to you, it tells you that that's the next step that you're going to do. It's entheogens, it's psilocybin, it's DMT, whatever it is, and you go, okay, I'll do it. And then it'll either come to you or you feel the calling so powerfully, you do everything to pursue it. Now, when I had this calling, I just had to take psilocybin mushrooms. And I'm like, fuck, where am I going to find those fuckers? I'm not buying any fucking thing from Amsterdam, this and the other. No, I'm doing it naturally. I'm doing what my indigenous ancestral people have been doing for thousands of years. I'm doing it that way because that's the sort of spirit I am, a very old soul. And I've been around these neck of the woods for thousands of years. So I thought, okay, I'm going to find those. So I start research. And then me and my mate, we was always going out, at least once a week for hours and hours and hours, different national parks, walking over fucking fields. We searched high and low. Couldn't find anything for about a month. And we found a billion other things. I became a fucking amateur mycologist in the interim, identifying all these different mushrooms. But then one day, only about a quarter of a mile from where I was living at that particular time, on a path I was going through to a jitty next to a paddock which had horses in it. And I'm like, fucking hell, I've walked past this fucking field for the past year. I've never thought about it. Spirit told me, look in there, look in that field. I went in that field, they're everywhere. I gathered them all up.
I'll say this much: I've always relied on my intuition in when it comes to these things, and I guess that's just not a word for spirit. It's just that in my case, way back when I was much younger, I didn't have so much trust in this intuition. It wasn't so finely tuned, maybe, and it gets better over years. I feel it gets better and better at guiding you, basically, and you make less and less decisions that are not conducive. But when it comes to entheogens and this kind of thing, back in the day, I was aware of them. But if we put it in these terms, it must have been spirit or intuition telling me to not do it at the time.
No,
Because
Spirit wouldn't tell you to do that. Spirit
you
wouldn't tell you.
reckon?
The ego would tell you.
I'll tell you the reasoning though, because I genuinely felt very much ungrounded, really, and there's a danger there. If you go into it sort of, you get too much too soon, and I wasn't really sort of just being in regular life. I wasn't really feeling grounded enough to really even approach that kind of stuff. So I had like a certain understanding and I guess like a respect for this thing because it's a powerful thing. And I was like, I don't know, like I should probably do my time in this sort of in meat space basically, and sort of stabilize myself. And now, sort of 10-ish years on, I come to this location, and again, my intuition is telling me now is the time. And part of the reason I'm looking at your channel is because you've gone through all these things, you've got all these reports and all these insights about this, and now I feel like it's time. Now I feel like if I approach these things, whatever happens, I'll be fine. I've become in the sort of ensuing time grounded enough that I feel I can approach these things. So I don't know what you make of that, but that's kind of how that's why I held off on it, even though it seemed like a very productive thing to do. So it might have just been fear. I don't know. Like I thought I might experience some complete collapse.
It sounds to me like it was the ego, it was fear. That's how it works. You see, if you listened to a voice which said that you should take these, it's kind of like, look, this is your next step. And without this next step, you ain't climbing any further on the ladder. Do you want to climb further on the ladder or not? If you do, this is the next step. Don't worry, we've got you. Okay. Now, these entheogens, they're not such an ogre. They're not so devastating. When you start small, Risco. And
As I
so,
always do with
yes,
anything I put into
you
my
start with
system.
quarter tab of acid. Then you're gone
Yeah,
up to a
yeah.
half a tab of acid, and then three-quarters of a tab of acid, and then your body, your ego will be in acceptance of it. Oh, it's not so terrifying. And then you listen to people, and then you say, well, if you want a really good experience, then take 2 tabs of acid. Look, you work it out, however your body deals with it. But that's the thing, not just blanking it. Oh no, I'm just going to be an earth suit rover and this, that, and the other. It was the ego that just probably just didn't feel it just had anything like the information to even dare to do that. So it's all ego. When the
If,
spirit,
if I, if I, if honestly, if I reflect back on that time, like even had I done it and had I survived in the sense of like I wouldn't have had some kind of major bad trip or something, assuming I got like some major downloads or whatever as they call them, I don't think I would have been necessarily in the position to even really make sense of a lot of that stuff, you know. So that's kind of where a lot of this just doing that time in the regular world basically I think has been conducive for me. That's now where I feel like if I'd be at least in some much better position to really make sense of what's going to be happening, presumably in no small part thanks to channels like yours and a couple of others I've seen where people describe how it is. And I do think like this fear is often overblown for sure. You know, people are very, very cautious about messing with the system in here in any regard, you know, let alone, you know, whatever. Some people refuse to go to psychologists and stuff for the same reason. Someone's going to get in your head, someone's going to mess something up, you know, so
oh,
forget
fear,
about
all ego, all ego.
it's fear. Yeah, so forget about like mushrooms and this kind of thing. But you know, I had contact with psychiatrists back in that time, and I was always yeah, reading stuff that would challenge my thinking and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, for some reason I told myself that this just might be too much too soon, you know. And yeah, now it's kind of switched around. Now it's the time. So that is the next thing that I'm doing soon enough, and
And
maybe
the thing is,
we'll be having conversations about that.
well, I mean,
Hopefully.
my preference is DMT because with
Mm,
DMT you're in and you're out,
mhm.
and your ego is always going to give you a level of anxiety before. And for those who haven't had the calling, that don't want to just go, ego, shut the fuck up. I'm doing this. You've got to make that decision, right? You've got to go, ego, shut the fuck up. I am doing it. So you distinguish your actual core essence from the ego. When you do that, that's when you're going to do it. If you think you're the ego, and if the owner, oh yeah, but what if I do this and what if I have a bad trip? Hang on, hang on, hang on. The only fucking thing that's having a bad trip is the ego, right? You ain't having a bad trip. Spirit consciousness ain't having a bad trip. It's the ego with all of its bullshit. So we've got to know where we're thinking from. And so what was happening with me is like I had this calling, this intuition that's been with me all my life, and it's been guiding me throughout the whole of the fucking world, and it's kept me safe and fucking sound in a whole bunch of things, traveling extensively, 45 countries, many, 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 many countries on my own in all different sorts of places. You know, even getting fucking shot in Africa. Well, I mean, to this day, I don't have any impairment whatsoever. I've got 24 4mm lead shot in here, and I don't feel a single thing. But under an X-ray, it's fucking riddled with it, and all these little fucking marks, fucking bones, whatever they're called, in there and all there. Nothing at all. And you know, I say it was the second best thing that ever happened to me. My first was having my daughter. The second best thing that ever happened to me was being shot, being absolutely traumatized by that fucking thing. And the ego just fucking imploding because it wasn't just being shot. I was living in Africa. I was fighting Africans, you know, intellectually. I'd invested in that country, and every single one of them's a fucking shark. and they're very, very clever and conniving. And a white
Yeah.
man in Africa, man, you know, you take
You're
your
gonna get
life
exploited.
very
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it was second best thing that ever happened to me, and it sent me on this journey. So, but when we are considering then taking entheogens, it's the ego which is going to fight. It's only the ego which is going to fight. And if you are having the calling, and if you then can start to distinguish between you being the ego and you being high state of consciousness, have you ever had any thoughts like that, that you're not the ego?
Yeah. Past sort of couple years, definitely, and I guess a sign of that is that you start getting this what they call like a witness consciousness sometimes, whereby you can almost observe yourself acting like a marionette, basically, and there's this outside observer to this. And when you get an awareness of this, which must be just a product of meditation, or maybe just a product of time too. I am 34 now, so I've seen a couple things, as well. But perhaps it's a product of the meditation where you get this witness consciousness, and the stronger it gets, the more I feel as well that I'll be fine whatever happens with any of this stuff, because yeah, there is this sort of the marionette basically, and that's the kind of thing you can't that's the thing you're not supposed to take too seriously. You can almost watch yourself behave in certain ways, sometimes maybe even uh, self-destructive ways or like bad ways. You can usually watch yourself kind of do this and get like distance from it. And that's why I like being here as well. And what I was saying to you in the comments a couple of times, like once the having to interact with the world and other people kind of goes away, I can just kind of look all this interplay of these elements, and I'm just kind of completely at peace with all of it. Although yes, so the ego still shows up, and there's this desire to be completely free of it, be completely free of fear and all these kind of things. So it's still there, but if I'm just on my own, just kind of observing all that, there's even some semblance of this kind of peace, that must be similar to what you experience, just like a lesser degree. I'm just like, there's nothing else. I can just sit here sometimes endlessly looking at cloud formations. That's something that 10 years ago wouldn't have even occurred to me. I couldn't,
Yeah.
I was a very sort of like, kind of like you, I guess, when you were younger, like sort of busy bee, always doing something, always applying myself. But at the same time, you're kind of blocking really like any thinking. You're kind of blocking feeling as well.
Yeah.
People that come from like trauma backgrounds and all this might be a lesser degree, but still, like I said, for me, it was more like a death by a thousand cuts kind of thing. But you end up with a bunch of this unprocessed kind of nonsense. So all that, these days, it's just like, I'm like, whatever, man. There's vestiges of that. There's still some fears, some sort of things I was telling you, like these pollutants, they're kind of holding you back. And I would imagine if you engage with the ethnogens, these are the kind of things that I would have sort of top of mind. I would keep all the bad stuff in focus. You see, I'm not like scared of that stuff at all. I wouldn't even necessarily expect to have some joyous whatever experience necessarily. I would rather sort of look at all this bad stuff, bring it front and center, and be like, bring it, kind of that kind
Yeah.
of attitude. Because I'm like, what do I got to lose anyway? That's just one of the earliest videos I saw on your channel was forget. I think it was like, why do you hide your face or something? It was one
Mm.
of the video titles. That was a really good video, and I was like, I just took that to mean basically like in terms of ego and all this and being judged and whatever. I just kind of asked myself as well. I was like, what do you really got to lose? And if it does happen that you take ethnogens and you kind of lose something, the ego's gonna put up a fight. It's gonna be painful. But even then, I'm like, I don't know. What do you really got to lose anyway? Not much.
Well, at the end of the day, when you realize that you're pure cosmic consciousness, there's nothing to lose. You are that. You always have been. You always will be. It's the ego that has something to lose, and the ego has the autonomy to lose of keeping the human being in a very, very narrow parameter of consciousness. Now, when you say all the bad shit, well, I don't consider that I have ever had anything bad happen to me in my whole life. I don't believe in bad because it's how you transmute that energy. It's just energy. It's just ideas. It's just thoughts. And if you feel a victim, oh, they've sacked me, or oh, my missus left me, my government is doing this to me, they're oppressing me and they're controlling me. Look, I'm like, look, ain't nobody oppressing me, ain't nobody controlling me, ain't nobody, done anything to me which I'm going to start crying about through self pity. No,
To
what's happened
tran-
to me, Risco, is I have been given a billion opportunities to evolve. That's what's happened. Thank you, Cosmos.
yeah, that's I completely understand that mindset, and I can't say that I can get into that with everything that's happened to me, unfortunately, but this word transmutation is like the key word there, isn't it? It's like this alchemical thing and all this, like it's like based
Yeah,
on this
but
assumption that
let me just ask you this. You say that everything's that happened to you. Well, you're there. You say you never had a serious illness in your 34 years. You're young, healthy. Your life's ahead of you. Well, what the fuck? What's happened to you in the past? It's water off a duck's back. You're here now. You're strong. You're young. You're learning. You're fucking going forward. What the fuck? You carrying shit that you think happened to you, which is left a negative residue? No. You look. We have to become alchemists. We transmute all energy into positive. And so you
yeah, it's
wipe
like
out of your
the
mind things that you think were bad because you are here now, you're progressing. And, look, if you're standing there without any arms and you go, well, when I was in Afghanistan, my arms got blew off, so that was bad. I'll go, well, I'll be inclined to agree with you to a certain extent, but it depends then what transformation happened to your mind. How's your mind? Are you now doing things that you weren't doing before? Have you entered another state of consciousness? Do you now see the folly of all that bullshit, dressing up, pretending to be a fucking soldier boy? You're just a utility for billionaires. Have you learnt about that fucking now? Do you want to teach somebody else? Because if you do, what can you say is bad about it? You've been given an opportunity to change things in the world and prevent other people getting their arms blown off. You see, so it's just how we look at things, Risco.
oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and I would agree as well. Like a lot of this stuff, at the end of the day, these things that you perceive yourself to be held back by, it doesn't amount to much than just like petty bullshit. Quite often, if you really fucking think about it hard enough, and it's like, yeah, what really actually happened to me? Fuck all. I mean, I guess we don't have time to go into all of that today, but I'm something of like an addict, and like these people often carry negative emotions in regards to that, guilt and shame, and these kind of vampires, that kind of thing. But I do get a sense as well that a lot of this stuff, yeah, when you just look at the range of possibilities that could fucking happen to a person in this life, all this fucking horrendous shit that happens to people, a lot of it just comes down to this like petty, it's like you said, water off a duck's back. It's just like, what the fuck. And yet some things, they're persistent, and they must be, because it goes deep to the core somehow. It goes back to your childhood, something like that. So that's what I mean by sort of this, if not bad stuff, let's call it sort of persistent stuff or whatever, just looping thoughts. Some things, my idea of a still mind is such that at least a part of it, you don't have any of these looping, unproductive, pointless kind of thoughts, right? You
Yeah.
must, you get rid of that, and then you don't have any sort of like second guessing yourself. And again, intuition or spirit, I guess in your case, takes over, and then you don't have any reason to really second guess anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not quite there yet. That's why I said to you, like, so close yet so far. Like I'm in the ballpark. I feel, I kind of see what's happening, but there's some crucial steps sort of missing, and that's why we're here now today. I think, sort of, for me, practically speaking, to be sort of proactive about it as much as you can is to engage with
Yeah,
energies,
you
basically.
absolutely have to be proactive. If you haven't had the
Yeah,
trauma, then you have to put yourself through a very high level of discipline. And
another
so
key word. Yeah, discipline.
yeah,
Yeah,
discipline. And in the meditation, you've got to be serious about it. And the thing is, It's whether you have had a calling for it. Now, all my life, everything has just panned out absolutely perfect. Um, the first day I started to try this meditation, my mind and my body loved it. And I did it every single day for the last 17 years. Never missed a day. Why? Because it's something that's so powerful within me. It's what I am. I visit what I am. At least once a day, and that meditation can be as little as 10 minutes when I'm out. And it happens every single morning when I go out into the natural world and all of a sudden I hear the bird song. It puts me in a dream. And that my mind just goes completely empty, and I'm at one with God's creation, God being the cosmos, God being consciousness, God being intelligence. It's a fucking miracle. I'm a miracle. It's a miracle. And I realize the miracle, and I'm realizing the miracle every fucking day. 24 hours of a day. There's never a moment I dismiss or discount or forget the miracle. No, it's all a miracle. So we have this instead of like, oh, I've got to go and pay this bill, or I've got to go and put a tire on the car, and you're running around with pure purposeless, meaningless shit at the end of the day.
The
And then
chicken
you
pack in life.
well, yeah, but if you've got a family, you got that. Okay, look, that's stuff you've got to do when you're unevolved. When you're unevolved, you don't do it anymore. And it's like Carl Jung said, life past 50 years old is for personal development. Or let's say 40 years old. Back in the day, people used
I think it
to.
was 40. He said, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you get to 40, your kids have grown up by this time. They're adults, they've done their own thing. Maybe your fucking missus has left you, or you've left her. And then you go, what the fuck am I going to do? Well, you're going to get involved with what you came here to do, to learn about what it is to be you. Right, that's the spiritual awakening and all the rest of the stuff. And so, Carl Jung realized that the automaton banging around, and for fuck's sake, I didn't wake up completely like that until I was 45. I was full on into the matrix, albeit I always knew that I had the spirit of the cosmos with me, because I've never had a second of loneliness in all my life. It's just something that I just don't know what it is. I can't fathom loneliness. And so then, once we realize that, we are pure consciousness having an earth experience, well, there's nothing to be afraid about. Look, you can have a little bit of reservation about suffering pain. Yes, no one wants to suffer pain. So if you're going to be climbing a mountain, you want to be a bit careful. You don't want to break your fucking back, right? But the whole thing in relation to death, ultimately, well, there is no death. It's like when you go to sleep at night and you're having a dream, you're just going to wake up into another variety of consciousness. That's what I'm absolutely convinced of. And that's what the deepest and most profound thinking gurus on the planet have espoused. And so it comes about with a variety of knowing. Now, my situation is that I'm a very particular character, and you know people who I grew up with in children's homes who have suffered not as much as I had suffered. For instance, myself and my older brother, we went into one of the first children's homes with two other brothers. And one of them ended up killing himself because he couldn't stand what his lot had become. My elder brother, he's just a fucking societal fucking drone with a very tiny mind, can't think about anything outside of his own immediate I've got to get, and oh, money's hard, and that's all he ever fucking talks about. Whenever he sees anyone, oh, nothing's selling, or there's no money, and he's always poverty stricken. It's just a tiny little fucking state of consciousness. Why am I very different? We had the same parenting, we had the same upbringing, we lived in the same household for fucking 15 years. Why am I so very, very different? It was destined to be that way because I am an old soul. He wasn't. And so I've come back again at this level that I'm at now to learn even more. And it's been a wonderful journey. And then when you look at victimhood, well, I don't know. Probably I was a victim 1,000 times before. This time around, I ain't doing no victim shit. My mother died, great. Best thing that ever happened to me. Right, being shot in my fucking bed, best thing that ever happened to me. You know, whatever trauma I've had, best thing that's ever happened to me. Why? Because it just keeps expanding my fucking state of consciousness. And that seems so intuitively the purpose for me here. And so if you've got things of your past where you feel a victim, you've got to address that. And deep meditation over a long period of time will help you do that. And entheogens will most certainly get you doing that, because it will detach you from your ego and say, look, the ego, you'll work out what the ego is. The ego is just a program, mate, you know, of what society's fucking told you and what telly's told you, and you know what the ego has told you about your own experiences. Oh, I'm a victim. Oh, my girlfriend left me. It wasn't my fault, and all this, and now I'm lonely. Well, fuck me. You know, you could think of it.
I've never had the victim sort of mindset as well. Maybe when I was very young, but that's something that in regards to dealing with your family, that you really have to kind of work out. You know, like you're not really victimized in that situation. You take responsibility. That's just kind of how I worked it out, and then I just kind of apply that to everything. So I've never really, from a pretty young age as well, I never connected with that victim thinking.
So why
Because
are you saying that you're still dragging things with you then that have happened to you? Because
oh,
just by
because
things that have happened to you, it's kind of victimhood, isn't it?
if I word it like that, yeah, I suppose so. Well, it's more to do with like actions I've taken, I guess, either in the world, in interacting with others, or against myself, things I've done, maybe that kind of thing. So you know, like again, you got this addict mind. You take certain actions you're not proud of. You end up feeling with guilt and shame, basically, right? So there's nobody to blame. I never, again, I kind of signed like any. I got no problems with anybody, basically, in that regard. The only bonds I ever had to pick really was with people in my family, yeah. But again, like you work through that, you're like, yeah, but they were kind of born into this their own fucking matrix. They're trapped themselves. They didn't fucking mean it, you know, on this think scale. You think you all this. That's
Yeah.
all done, you know. And I'm like, cool. So what remains is all this sort of things that, you know, my thinking is that you're ultimately responsible for everything. In reality, it's basically a reflection
Yeah,
of
because you are
you
ultimately
know,
responsible for how you process it.
yeah, yeah. So certain things, I don't know. You might find yourself in life if you're young, like again, it's the ego, right? You got a certain idea of yourself. You got this sort of personality continuity. For instance, you think you're some kind of character. You carry this kind of torch, so to speak, through time, and then something happens that just kind of exposes this to be bullshit. That I had this happen, which I guess is like a light form of sort of. Your ego just being wiped out. I've just had that happen in regular life where you just kind of build yourself up to this fucking whatever. It's got very little to do with actual reality. It's born of fear, right? It's like a defensive ego character that you're signaling out. This gets wiped out without any ethnogen, nothing. You know, just life just kind of.
Yeah.
And then you get the sense of like uh, discontinuity. You might get the sense of like negative feelings, shame and guilt, whatever, about how you used to behave, right? And so, but that's still like, oh, that was me doing that. There was no one really forcing me into any situations, that kind of thing. So those are the things that are kind of for me been hard to kind of chew through. But
Okay then.
again, I will admit a lot of this. Again, if you really think about it, it's just kind of petty stuff, and it's to do with this desire to have this sort of continuity of personality, I guess. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
you don't want to.
it's the ego hanging
Yeah,
on
yeah,
to fucking something when it's not. Look, let me
yeah.
just give you the remedy for what you've spoken about. The remedy is to take a reasonable dose of psilocybin, whereby you're going to be perfectly functional. You're going to be able to drive, and you're going to be able to do interact with people and everything. But your mind is going to be like you in a therapy session, and your higher self is going to be telling you all the things that you've done in your life, all the shit that you've done in your life. and what's not good, and what you should be doing. And so when you're on this trip, I always take mine when I'm out walking around the woods. I'm never going to be taking my entheogens lying in fucking bed with closed eyes. No, that's not my bag, man. That's just
Yeah, me neither. I'll go out for sure.
the world. And so the entheogens are going to be speaking to you about all these things. And then when you come out of it, you've got a different perspective. And who is it that's been speaking to you? People say, oh, the mushrooms told me this and the mushrooms told you that. It's your higher self that's telling you that. It's your unconscious. They're the same fucking thing, really. It's everything about you, because what you start to think when you're on entheogens, and when people say, oh, the mushrooms told me this. Well, I would ask, well, how do the fucking mushrooms know all that shit? If I was to think about it rationally, I wouldn't say the mushrooms, like, oh, they're up there some fucking where, or they're in the ground, some mysterious entity which knows me. No, what knows me? I fucking know me. My consciousness knows me, right? So my unconscious, or my higher self, that knows everything about me. And it's that comes forward and gives the ego a fucking dressing down. And so you don't have to be afraid of any fucking thing. You just take like 2 fucking grams, as a starter, or something like that. You ain't going to go, oh, the world's turned all funny. No, not on 2 grams. Even if you're unsure about it, take 1 gram. Take half a gram first.
Yeah, absolutely. I've lost this fear now. It's just the sort of questions of practicality when and I need to.
I want to make sure I'm penetrating on this. It's not just a fucking conversation, right? This is a level of consciousness speaking to another level of consciousness, and trying to see if I am sitting with you. What do you think about what I've just said? That yourself will talk to yourself. So why would you have any fucking thing to be afraid of? It's the ego that doesn't like the dressing down. You see, it's just the program.
Yeah, absolutely. No disagreement.
So can you see that you are going to be talking to yourself? You are your own best therapist. You know everything about yourself. You know where you've been. You know what you've done. And all these things are going to be risen up and presented before you. You know when your mother said to you this, that, and the other when you were 6 years old, and then you did something spiteful. Well, that wasn't the way forward, mate. And then you will have the opportunity to, when you come out of it, you pick up the phone and you go, hey, Mum, when I did that shit, I'm sorry. Because that's what these entheogens do. They will give you the opportunity to phone up everybody that you've hurt, if you so desire to do that, if you think they could receive it. Particularly family, you could just go around and say to them, look, we've had a difficult time in our family. I want to put it to rest. I hope you do too. Let's just forget all about it. With family, we both traveled a journey. I forgive you. I'm done with that. And what you do is you forgive yourself. That's what you're doing. You can say you forgive somebody out there, but you're forgiving yourself. You are accepting these things, and you're not apportioning blame, and you're not carrying the weight and the trauma with it. You just say, I don't need to do that anymore. No, I can let go of that. My sister, right? She had a big issue with our stepmother for years and years and years. The stepmother was very vindictive towards her, caused her a lot of trauma, doing all different sorts of spiteful things. But my sister still carries the stepmother within her in a form of hate. And just to think of that woman, oh, that fucking bitch, and it's all like, and I'm like, whoa, look what's happened. You're still carrying the bitch within you. Let her go. I will never fucking let go of that fucking bitch. Well, then you'll take her to your grave. She's been dead 5 fucking years now, and you're still keeping her alive.
Yeah, that's wild, especially if the people are gone. I completely understand this, because you're giving power over to them. Whether they're alive or dead, whatever. That makes complete sense to me. Absolutely. And I don't think there's anybody really left in that sense to write letters to, so to speak. Maybe a couple people here and there, but that's not really on the top of my mind as well. Certainly when it comes to things that transpired a long time ago, and you've said this in some of your videos as well, whereby you become very disconnected from like whatever was going down, because you're just genuinely like a completely different person at this point. You're just like, yeah, you know. So like, what does it really matter at the end of the day? So for me, it's never been a victim thing. I don't think that, or at least that's not the main thing in my mind by any stretch. It's always sort of the actions I've taken in the world or against myself, whatever, this kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely agree with what you're saying, and this
Well,
sort of
then Risco, then this little bit of a conversation has given you an opportunity to look at things differently. Because now what you're saying is
yeah.
that it's never like I've been a victim. When before you were saying the things that happened to me.
Mm.
You
That
see,
maybe just wasn't the best wording. Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
start to learn about what we're
yeah,
actually
yeah,
saying. Because what you're doing is when you're saying things happen to me, well, the cosmos would think, well, you consider yourself to be a victim then. And it's going to show you that you are a victim because that's what the cosmos does. It gives you what you fucking want because you are the cosmos, right? So if you say to yourself, well, all these things that I've experienced were a blessing, well, that's what you're going to get from the cosmos, mate.
Years ago, I kind of arrived at a similar way of thinking in a sort of roundabout way, where back when I was a little bit more burdened by these things, I would look at like comedians, as in like the profession of being a comedian. And I was like, man, like I kind of, that's like desirous, because whatever fucking ridiculous shit happens to a comedian, I was mentioning to you, like Doug Stanhope or whatever, I was like, it's all grist for the mill for these guys. In fact, it's better the more fucking ridiculous or painful even or whatever your life is, because all you got to do, transmutation, right, is you got to take the microphone and make a fucking story out of it, you know? So I was like, whatever happens to these guys, there's no wrong path, is there?
No.
Almost anything can be turned to a fucking stage routine. And I was like, because I'm not known to be funny or anything like that. I have no connection to that world, but I was like, why can't I live like that, or everybody live like that? It's all grist for the mill, right? So just like, have that attitude. I saw some like transmutation in that, and yeah, that's kind of the attitude I try to keep going forward. Yeah.
So entheogens are going to help you with all this stuff. An incredible amount. That's what they're going to help you with. And so, how long have you been meditating now? How serious are you? And how long do you meditate for when you do?
I do like 20, 30 minute sessions, but I'm not like every day like you. I'll do 2 or 3 a week, just again because I'm working around all the schedule and stuff. So it might
Yeah.
be a question of like, how bad do you want it? Because again, if you want to meditate an hour each day, well, you can make it happen if you want it bad enough, right? So I'm
Yeah.
working around all these other things. I gotta exercise. I gotta do some chicken packing, all this, So I try to get some in, and I've been to these monasteries and stuff with proper monks and all this, and I've had like instruction here and there. But certainly, it's good. I feel good doing it while I'm doing it, not just when I get out of it. You see, that's the thing. A lot of people, I think, they don't particularly enjoy it, and
No.
maybe I don't even know if you can get any benefit from it at all if you don't. It's this is pain and gain kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I think it's supposed to be enjoyable, right? You go into
Yeah,
the
but
20, 30
there's
minutes.
an
And
issue that I've never comprehended because
mm,
people consider it to be punishment. Well, what is considering it to be punishment? The ego is considering it to be punishment.
yeah,
The
yeah,
ego wants flashy, 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 right? And so when your higher self wants to sit down, if your higher self wants to sit down and meditate, then you're going to sit down and meditate, and in not too much time at all, you're going to push the ego aside, and then the ego starts slowly to accept what's happening because you sit down when you speak about a monastery. Oh yeah, I've been to monasteries, this that, and the other. Look, the monastery is all around you. You are the monastery,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you
You don't
you
have to go to these places. You don't have to go. Like,
no.
no
So when you
doubt.
go out walking, right, for a certain portion of it, like I do, people think like, oh, you're always making videos when you're out. No, I'm not. For a very small portion. The rest of the time, I'm in a closed, open eye meditation where I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just listening, I'm observing. And this is why you commented on one of your videos. Um, I don't miss a trick. I just see so much because I'm tuning into that, and I don't have this distraction. Oh, you got to go shopping when you get back. No, goodness me, that stuff is so childish. It's so immature, and it's not been a part of my life for so long. Risco. It's just it's since I
That's
started
the
meditating.
stuff.
in the first 6 months, I got rid of that twat, and
Yeah.
I entered into to something else. The ego is a complete, full blown fucking twat. There's nothing else. There's no other way to say about it. But you walk out your door and you're in this expanse. You walk up the fucking road and you're in the woods. Well, make a video. Okay, what you doing? I'm gonna have a fucking an open eye meditation. I'm going to try to just whenever I think about anything, stop thinking about it. That's just the same as a closed eye meditation. When you get thoughts, don't pursue them. Okay, stop pursuing your thoughts. And when your thoughts come about, I'm hungry, or oh, I need this, I need that, or how long's it been? Close, 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 close. Just keep observing. Just keep your consciousness open, and in time, then that will transfer into the priority that you have as a being, and the ego will become very subliminal. And the ego is useful for fixing your fucking battery on your car and doing all that different sorts of shit. But when you start, getting involved in this high state of consciousness, the ego needs to shut the fuck up. And
Yeah.
so, as I say, if you think it's painful, then you're not having the calling. Because if you were having the calling, you
Oh no,
could.
I don't. For me, that's what I was saying. For me to just be in the process is enjoyable in and of itself. So you almost like stop thinking about gaining any benefits or whatever
Yeah,
when you snap out of it.
forget about
You,
gaining any benefits.
you
Right,
forget
that's
about it. Yeah.
the thing. You just do it, and then you get the benefits.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. So I don't know if it's like a calling thing for me, but certainly once I got into it, like I've found it to be enjoyable. And there's people that can't get through the day, without meditating at least once or twice. And who knows, maybe one day I'll be like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you just go into this beautiful sanctuary. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm here again. That's home. And it's kind of like, wow, it's so beautiful, it's so blissful. And, when you become proficient at it, you will just slip into this nothingness without any thought, very easily. And then your mind will tell you, okay, that's enough. For me, the threshold is averagely 40, 50 minutes. That's then when my mind is satiated, and then I'll open my eyes and I'll go, oh, I'm here. This is where I am. I didn't know that. And then the colors are brighter, the lights more intense, the song and everything. And if you meditate like out in the woods and things like that, to help you do it, to help you close your mind, tune in to the birds. And then you'll hear all different sorts of birds speaking to each other across the expanse. And you can hear the
Yeah.
blackbirds singing to blackbirds, the sparrows singing to sparrows, and well, they're talking, they're telling. It's a communication. Scientists are learning more and more about that. It's language. It's not just fucking singing. It's language. It's communication. And I've been in touch with this for many years now because I've spent so much time out in nature. I know that the language changes with the seasons very, very profoundly. And so once you get
That's
into
interesting.
that and you
That's
listen
interesting. Yeah.
to the birds and you do that, then you'll slip into a deep, beautiful state of consciousness.
That sounds really interesting. I'm only most of my life I've been a city boy, urban, so I'm
Yeah.
only getting really a sense of this. But yeah, I mean, even surprisingly to myself, I can sit here sometimes. You do open eye meditation. You just look at the cloud formations. I swear I've done that for like 60 minutes straight, many occasions. That's like a big deal for me. I didn't think I would be doing something like that. And it's just like you're not really missing anything, in that state, and it's just pure bliss. So if you've got your life organized the way you do, you can do this all the time. It's like more power to you, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it's something
excellent.
to work towards, but you're young, and so you've got to
Yeah.
do all that stuff. That's the natural way. But you see, you're starting it before I started it. In this way of acknowledging you actually starting it. I didn't start it until I was 45. I was so super busy, building my empire, traveling around the world, and always prospecting. What can I earn here? What can I build here? Can I buy land here? Can I do that there? Always like that. But being a very dichotomous person, I was always absorbing the culture. I'm always feeling, I'm always observing everything. Just a mind of information. Whenever I used to go out with my friends. We used to go walking at least every single week for 8 hours of a day up to these national parks, and I would always be filming lots of things we spoke about because we spoke about wonderful things. I don't know whether you've ever seen any of my conversations with Paul, Mr.
Mm,
Nobody.
maybe I just can't connect the name and the face. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
so
I just know Andre.
very short hair, a bit thicker set than me. Uh, well, but
Maybe no. Maybe I haven't watched those.
for many many years, and so I'd be filming, and whilst I'm speaking to him, and I'm also filming, I'd be looking around everywhere. I like just absorbing everything, and I'm like, look, what's actually going on here? Because I'm filming our conversation. Because something tells me that this stuff is going to benefit a lot of people potentially. Then also, I am doing what I've come here to do. I'm on a reconnaissance mission, like an alien. I'm gathering data from Earth. I'm absolutely convinced about that. This is why I've traveled so extensively around the world. This is why I've been engaged in so many things. I'm gathering information, and then I am either putting it up into the Akasha or something of that nature. That's what's happening with me, and I also pull from the Akasha, like being channeled. So it's like a circuit with me. It's from the Akasha up to the Akasha, and so when we start to get into that sort of realm of being a conduit for consciousness, because when we look fundamentally what's going on here, we come to an impasse with consciousness. We don't know what's beyond consciousness because we can't go beyond consciousness. Beyond consciousness is death. We don't know what's there. We can only speculate. And so when people maybe consider that they have died, the body's died, and they've been out, they've still been conscious. And so it seems like there's no end to consciousness. Consciousness is the be all and the end. Well, once you know that you are an avatar, a conduit for consciousness, you know that you are very important. You're an important integral part because it's consciousness which is expanding, and so when your consciousness expands, the cosmos expands. Because as individuated consciousness expands, then it stands to reason that cosmic consciousness would be expanding because the information kind of like has to be somewhere. If we think in our narrow parameter of things need space, well, when you've got information on a computer, it needs space. Right, so information must need space, and so it's probably the same in the Akasha and in the cosmos. So whenever you are conveying something in your videos, always bear that in mind that you are not only conveying to your limited viewers at this moment in time, your information is going out, and that information will be picked up by other conscious entities with the antennae to receive it. I'm absolutely positive about that also. So there's lots of things to consider. So are you okay for another half an hour? Do you have that time?
Actually, no. I only planned 60 minutes, so I have to let my girlfriend in. I told her to go chill for a while, so
Oh, right,
I think we
okay
can
then.
wrap. We've done 90 minutes anyway. We can wrap up here, but um, happy to do this some other time as well. Just pick up where we left off.
Yes, well, I'm always available, and if look, Tom knows you. You know Tom. You know Andre. I know Andre. So at this very limited stage, there's a lot more than I'm aware of that watch all of us. And I know from your comments that people are on my channel and on Tom's channel. And so I think one day Andre would like to have a conversation three-way with us. I know you speak to Andre now, and so we can do that because he likes that idea. And we can maybe even do it with Tom on one occasion. Just get the whole theme of sharing consciousness and actually trying to get down into the nitty-gritty of what actually we are trying to do. You see, because if we think it's just watching a video and it's just reading this book and or it's just learning about that, no, you're not in it. You're not in it. It's more than that. There's something vastly bigger going on, and so this is where I'm at it now. And this is why I'm probing so much, and I can be pretty intense, in my delivery and how I'm speaking, because there's things I feel really important that we should know. and people should start to think about it. And the level of frustration when I'm saying in the videos about, what are you going to do about it? Entheogens, meditation, are you going to do anything about it? Do you want to let me know what you're doing about it? Has anything I've ever said touched you? Has it changed your the way you think in any shape or form? Put something down, but invariably no. In fact, someone goes, I like playing golf. And I'm like, well, actually, this video wasn't really about playing golf, mate.
It kind of boggles the mind how you get those comments. I don't know, like people
Yeah.
find this channel somehow. I don't get it. What compels them to comment with sort of stuff like that? I don't know. So I get your frustration in this regard. I don't know. I don't understand it.
And so, if I can find a few which do get some of it and can convey themselves, then, it's a step in the right direction. So thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it and I enjoyed it. And anytime you're welcome. So let's see what happens, shall we?
Absolutely, I'm down to talk with those guys, and I responded to your challenge in the hopes that now, well, Tom was first. I'm here now. Maybe some of your viewers, because you were pretty adamant, you want to find out who these people are. So maybe someone.
Yeah, how terrible was it? How terrible was it?
No, it's fine. Yeah, totally fine. Totally fine.
So
I enjoy the conversation. It's
when
great.
you have a reservation, now you have to look at your reservation because you have to look at the egoic fear, and you have to see the ego was a false prophet. Whatever it was telling you wasn't true.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, well, on that note, we got a good 90 minutes. So until next time, I guess.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Bro.